traders, this is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com on March 15th, Sunday, with a look at the week ahead. In this video, we'll cover the indices which have pulled back from all-time highs, tick cumulative on the NYSE as well as the NASDAQ. Both crossed and are currently somewhat bearish. We have trend intraday extremes over the last few weeks, and we have breadth with no MAD or MDDs, major accumulation days or major distribution days, this past week. And also we're talking about currencies. The US dollar moving above 100, and the previous occurrences where this happened. We'll watch bonds, and of course we'll look at setups, the high type flag scan, as well as the IBD 50 we pointed out on Saturday and Sunday. First, let's take a look at the US dollar. This is a chart going back to the mid-90s. Note that we moved off the lows and eventually hit the highs at 121.21 during the dot-com bubble and continued higher. Currently, we're right at the 100 level, obviously, and I'm expecting some resistance here at this previous area of support and resistance back in the 90s and early 2000. So for those people that are out there heralding the end of the world, just keep in mind that the dollar has rallied past 100 before, and the world did not end as we know it. If we look at the S&P 500 during the same period the US dollar rallied, we had this run up in the 90s of over 173%, and then again after a pullback of 22% during the Russian ruble crisis, as we see down here, August of 1998, then the markets rallied. The US dollar continued to move higher as we showed in the previous chart. So currently we could see a pullback in the indices. We do note that the MACD has crossed. We're currently at minus 2.6. We did see a low of around minus 4 last week, so we're pulling off of that a little bit. If we look at a chart of the US dollar overlaid on the SPX monthly, you can see very clearly the run up here, the peak in the US dollar at 121.21. The Fed funds rate hit 4.5%. Back here in early 2015, we were at 0.013% on the Fed funds rate. So we do have the possibility of continuing to move higher without panicking and thinking the world is coming to an end. Looking at the S&P 500 daily chart, we have Elder Impulse enabled. We have two blue sticks. We're expecting this triangle pattern, these lows, to push higher. We have the 50-period moving average, the blue line, and we note that we had no MDDs, major distribution days, or major accumulation days. We had one in February, but nothing since then. We had a couple of peaks here, but for the most part, breadth is looking pretty good on the indices. Looking at SPY daily, we are trading right inside of this very large volume by price bar. Note it is more than 50% green. We came down to the 50% retracement, almost hit the 618 from this pivot high and this pivot low back in late January. And we have the 10-period EMA right overhead. So we tested that on Friday, but we are right at the 50-period moving average. Note, slow stow is turning. The 5-1 has crossed and moved higher, and we'd expect to see continuation on 14-1. MACD, the Appel signal, which is a shorter term duration MACD, we would expect to see histogram continue to move higher and through zero this week. If that doesn't happen, then we'll stop out on the positions that we took long on the spiders. Very quickly, this is the SPY oscillator we shared on Friday and Thursday. We note that we're starting to see a hook here, and note previous occasions where we've crossed over to the downside, and when we've crossed over to the upside, we had a rally and a sell-off from the highs most recently. So we're looking at the nadir or the low of this curve as it's continuing to push higher compared to previous occurrences where we had a nadir and we continued to move higher and bullish sentiment continued to pour in as this curve developed. So watch for SPY. We'll watch this oscillator tomorrow as well as the comp. This is the way we left spiders the 60-minute at the end of the day. We pushed higher off of a higher low. Note MACD is moving higher and slow stow is moving higher as well. So we're expecting we could see continuation and then move into this area here where we have less volume congestion. We don't see anything until we get up to the 209.50, 209.75 level up here at this volume by price bar. But the thing I'm watching here is MACD and slow stow as well as the oscillator I just pointed out. Here is the same oscillator we shared on the comp on Thursday and Friday. Note these recent previous highs that we have support and resistance just below price. The oscillator is starting to turn, and note previous occurrences where the low or nadir turned and we saw momentum continue to the upside. Then following that we saw a crossover, the zero line, and continuation to the upside on most occasions. And here is the comp with a different perspective. We're at the lower Bollinger Band. We have the 10-period moving average EMA just above price. We tested that on Friday as well. But note slow stow on the 5-1 and 14-1 time frames are turning. The 5-1 triggered on Friday. And we see MACD, the Appel signal, the shorter duration 5-14, is a histogram is moving higher and more than likely will cross this week. So that looks good for the NASDAQ as well as some of the things we pointed out on the semiconductors and other technology stocks that look okay going into the week. So we'll keep an eye on those as well as the comp, oscillator, as well as the SPY. This is a section in my book where I talk about the oscillators as well. And one of the things to point out is that once we see these things occur, we also check NAMO and NASI, and then we round off our hypothesis with the large cap weighted stocks in the NASDAQ composite and the S&P 500, and make sure that those are also following our thesis with the oscillators that we pointed out that you see here on this chart. Looking at the Russell 2000, the small caps have fared much better. We're above the 10-period EMA and very near all-time highs. We are off of the lower Bollinger Band and we are headed towards the upper Bollinger Band. Note slow stow has turned already and moving higher. As we pointed out, we were expecting the same thing on SPY as well as the NASDAQ this week. Just want to take a second and point out the New York Stock Exchange Composite Index, NYA. This quadruple top that we traded against and made this nice move lower. We're currently below the 50 period and 200 period, the blue and the red respectively. Note that every time we came down on Elder and we continued to see red sticks, we saw a blue stick and then we saw a reversal, except for this occasion right here. And that's what we're seeing right now, higher low, two blue sticks, we're right under the moving averages, and we are looking at up-down volume, not showing us a MAD or MDD over the last week. Looking at the S&P 500 again for a moment, we note these previous areas of resistance where we pushed above in February, came back down, lost the area. Now we're testing it on Thursday and Friday. We have the 10-period EMA just overhead, and we have the New York Stock Exchange Advanced Decline rising over the last week and headed towards the neutral zone here, the white area, going into this week. So that's something else that we're watching as far as breadth is concerned for the coming week. This is the other thing that we were pointing out, same chart with Elder Impulse. We noted this pivot high and low in late February, early March, and then the 382 right here where we figure we might see resistance. We're hoping to see that on Friday. If we hit that resistance or 50% retracement, we're looking for a possibility that this could move lower before moving higher, only as a second scenario. So we're playing for both scenarios, whether we continue to move higher or we move lower. And the reason why we're watching this is because bonds, TLT, and AGG both put in a blue stick on Friday. So we're seeing lower highs and lower lows. So we're in this channel pattern on both. And we're looking to direction as far as a breakout on TLT and AGG or a move back down into this channel. If the latter occurs, then that would help the SPX and the other indices going into the week. Okay, so let's take a look at some setups. We ran the high tight flag scan. AFC Energy, I notice a lot of these London-based stocks, the .L, are on the high tight flag scan this week. We'll be continuing to watch these stocks as they push higher. ALM.L, another London-based stock, Allied Mines, continues to move higher. Note the consolidation pattern here and holding the 10-period EMA, while Slow still has moved higher and MACD is back above its signal line. Ampio, AMPE, this was on the list and a stock that we've traded recently off of these 370 low, 370 breakout where we based out. This is Alex the pharmacist who traded this one with us. We ran up to the 565 area, sold that area, got stopped on the remaining position, then bought again on the 10 EMA, consolidated here. We pointed this stock out last week, and then it broke out on Wednesday. Anacor Pharmaceuticals, ANAC, continues to move higher. This is a stock we were watching back in the summer that continued to move higher off of this 13 price level, doubled, and then continued to move higher most recently. Anthera Pharmaceuticals, ANTH, another one, nice low here at just shy of $2, $1.50, ran up, doubled, failed, came back down, held the 20 period, broke above that level on a gap up, and has continued to move higher. I'm just showing you these to show you the potential in some of these high type flags. Now, here's one, APR Energy, APR.L, another London-based stock that may very well take off in the very near future. Note the high type flag, the 146 level, a double, $292. Note the Kirby level here, the potential to move up to this volume by price bar, previous level of support and resistance, up here around 530, 540. So keep that in mind on APR Energy. ARRY, Array Biopharma, this is a stock we've had since this area right here where we thought it was going to hold the 10 period, but we haven't gotten stopped. We could take the stop, but it's a fairly inexpensive stock, so we were looking for like $7.75 or so to take a stop on this one. Hopefully this breaks out soon. Note the tight Bollinger Bands. Slow Stow is turning, and MACD starting to get back above its signal line. Auspix Biopharmaceuticals, ASPX. Note the gap up, move sideways, tight Bollinger Bands. Did that again, started breaking out this week. Looking pretty good. Slow Stow is overbought now, and MACD is above its signal line, so we would wait on this thinly traded stock for a move back to the 10 period EMA, and hopefully this continues to push higher for an entry if you have not gotten into the stock on last week's high type flag scan. Capnia, CAPN, a relatively new issue, moved lower in this area here, broke trend, moved sideways, and then on a 10E Stow MACD setup, Stow was down at 20 turning, MACD was above its signal line, and price emerged above the 10 period just prior to this breakout at the 2 level, and this ran up, and you can see what happened. Price went from $2 a share up to almost $10 a share within 2 weeks trading. So that shows you the potential at some of these high type flag scans. candidates when you catch them early. Typically what you look for is increased volume off of the low 60 days. You want to see a 90 to 100% increase, then a consolidation pattern. Typically we like to see patterns that consolidate within a few days to a maximum of 2 weeks. Something like this is probably a little less advantageous in terms of a long, only because it just doesn't act as well as some of the stocks we've seen in the past as a high tight flag with a better, tighter pattern. Kempra, we saw this one back in November where prices ran up. We had a nice flag. We were above this volume by price level and prices took off. We've got a $10 gain in this particular stock. Note that as these stocks build and you start to see volume accumulating, this is one of the first signs in terms of getting into one of these stocks before it ramps up and builds a pull. This is actually a second stage base that we want to trade off of, the breakout. However, if we can find these stocks earlier, which is something that Mikey and I are working on, we will get into these stocks earlier and continue to move higher like AMPE is doing currently. If you watch the 10-period EMA, that stock continues to hug the 10-period as it moves higher. Now we're expecting a consolidation on AMPE similar to this, and then it'll take off again and move higher. But note the Kirby level here. Once we broke out of this flat base like AMPE, again reference that stock, it moved higher, hugged the 10-period, and continued to move higher. Then it built the high tight flag in the later stages of its development. Concordia Healthcare Group, we've noticed this one way back. See, back here in early April, we saw this potential, moved higher. The flag got a little carried away, came back almost down to the 50-period moving average. Then it moved sideways, we lost interest, but this one just continues to move higher as the 50-period moved higher as well on this Canadian-based stock out of the Toronto exchange. CoreMedics, this one was a flag back in December. We saw this run up from $1.25, $1.30 a share, doubled nearly, and then hit the $3.45 level before a nice flag here. So you can see what the potential in some of these stocks are. CRMD. Note now we would wait for slow stow to move back down and MACD to get back above its signal line. It's on above its signal line on the 1226 duration. So we're watching for this 10-period EMA to hold, and the possibility this could move a little bit lower and the 20-period catch up. So CoreMedics, if you didn't get into it, this might give an opportunity for another entry in the near future. DepoMed, DEPO, this one was on the scan earlier in the summer where it ran up from $9 and change up to 15. We were looking for 18. It didn't happen. It moved sideways first. It stayed on the scan and it held the 50-period, continues to move higher. Dirt Environmental Solutions, this is a Toronto-based stock as well. We're keeping an eye on this one as we saw this level down here around 350. This base, build, flag, and then moved higher. So we're waiting for another flag and see if this doesn't appreciate a little bit more before that happens. Eagle Pharmaceuticals, this is one that escaped our attention last week. We were watching this previous to this consolidation period. We were watching this, how it was holding a 10 period, but we weren't paying attention and it broke out on Thursday. Empress Biopharmaceuticals, we saw two flags here, high type flags. This one broke down in early January. Since ran back up, we had a nice 100% increase, a little bit better than that. Moving down to the 20 period, we're watching how this handles the $10 range and the 20 period moving average, as well as the 10 period EMA just overhead. Watching the slow stow and MACD. FWM still on the list, watching this consolidation pattern. Note slow stow and MACD. Fibercell continues to move higher. Freescale Semiconductor, this one just continues to move higher. We missed this opportunity in this one when it ran up from $15 up to $25, consolidated, and then it broke higher. We were looking for $30 a share, a 100% increase. 30 to 31, but it didn't happen, so this kind of fell off the radar. Moved above this volume by price level and into the Kirby, and that shows you the potential what happens when a stock runs into the Kirby. There's no overhead supply, and it just continues to move higher. 52-week highs after 52-week highs. HRTX, Heron Therapeutics, has been on the list for a couple of weeks. We've been watching this pole building. We've got the 100% increase. Now we're watching this tight flag. A break above this level in the 15-20 range could be a trigger for a buy, and then an add if it breaks above the pole. Note slow stow, and MACD longer duration is staying above its signal line. Horizon Pharma just continues to move higher. It's holding the 10-period EMA. This comes down and touches the 10-period EMA, and slow stow manages to move back down to at least the 50 level and bounce, and MACD stays above the signal line. That might be another entry. Perhaps it moves down to the 20-period first. We'll watch for a flag here though, at any rate. NSP continues to move higher. You can see what these stocks do. They put in a low, and then they double, and then they double again. Intercept Pharmaceuticals continues to move higher, ICPT. We're just keeping this one on the list. Note this Kirby level, volume by price, tapers off, and there's no resistance, no overhead supply above here if it gets above the 290, 300 level. K12, nice run up, flagging sideways. This is taking longer than expected, but it could do something like the other stocks. We don't pay attention and it breaks out. Note the volume by price resistance level up here around $23 per share. Lion Biotechnologies, another one of these stocks that's run up from $7 a share. We're looking for 14 and then a flag here, so put this on your watch list. LBIO. Note the volume, what we're looking for. Volume starts to build up where we didn't see much before. It's just showing institutional interest. Somebody's accumulating here, and likely this will continue to do this. Flag out, and then you'll see a burst in volume, and a stock like this would take off. It's not a promise, it's just something that we see in most of these stocks. As it occurs, the volume builds up, and then it just keeps increasing, and at some point it breaks out, and the volume is very obvious at that point. Neophotonics, PTEN. We're watching this one, Bollinger Band squeeze, breaking higher. We've got the double going on here. We're looking for a flag now, and then a move higher. Note the lack of volume by price congestion or resistance here. So if this stock flags out and volume again starts to accumulate, we could see a breakout on this stock once it builds a nice tight flag. This interesting stock, Natellos Holdings, NTLS. Note the flat base here. Broke above that, came back and tested it, got above the 10-period EMA. Now it's holding that. We've changed trends. Note the moving averages are all moving higher now. Price is above the 10-period, not below the 10-period. When we're below the 10-period, we only go short. When we're above the 10-period EMA, we only take longs. Now we just wait for slow stow to recycle and MACD to stay above its signal line, while price holds the 10 EMA as well. That may not happen. It may just take off from here, and we see resistance back up here around the 1150, 1175 level. So keep an eye on this stock. We'll track it over the next several weeks and see how it performs. Ocular Therapeutics, looking interesting. Oxford Biomedica, another stock trading on the FTSE. Note this pennant pattern breaking above, no overhead supply here. This one could continue to move higher. Would wait for slow stow to turn again. MACD's above its signal line. Decent volume though that's building up on this stock. Transportadora de Gasura. Building a nice pole here. We'll look for a nice tight flag. Note the volume. This is what typically alerts us to a high tight flag, is this build up in shares as institutions fall all over themselves buying a stock for whatever reason. We don't know what that is, but we have to do our homework. The stock has to build the pole, then build a tight flag, 100% increase on the pole, and have a stock have a product or a service that institutions are falling all over themselves accumulating shares on before it ultimately breaks out. OLED, universal display, this one continues to move higher, note the 50 period, price holding the 10 period. We'll pull back to the 10 period EMA, where slow stow gets down to 20 and MACD stays above its signal line is typically what we look for. Obviously, we don't chase these stocks higher. In Biopharma, I just wanted to keep this one on here because we pointed this one out when it doubled from $2.31 up to $5.20, the $6 level, and then broke out, and we saw a nice double on this stock as well. CNBC talked about it right in this area right here. They had the CEO on CNBC, and then the stock just continued to move higher. Note it's holding the 10 period EMA, nice little flag. Slow stow is turning at the 50 level, and we look for MACD to stay above its signal line. Okay, so this is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com. For you new traders, be sure to check out these top 5 or 6 videos, which will give you a better edge on understanding the markets, taking setups, and where to position yourself for the highest risk reward on your trade. In addition, if you don't subscribe to the blog, this is a spam-free site. Enter your email address in here and you can get these delivered to your email every day. You'll note my tweets are here, the watch list for the week or the day. You can just scroll down through these, keeping track of the trades that we're looking at, whether they're high-type flags or Bollinger Band setups. It's also a place for me to document the trades and thoughts going into the weeks. So I hope this helps. Take care. We'll talk to you on the stream on Monday.